Yeah, I rewatched the first Inside Out the other day and I just cried. Forgot the main character's name was Riley, and then I watched her grow up through the movie, and that's my daughter's name, and so yeah, I can't handle that. Fatherhood's made me a sap.
What a baby.
What's up, Flick fans? I have one question. Is Inside Out 2 classic Pixar, or is it a disappointment? Let's talk.
This is Joy, coming to you live in Riley's mind. Make some noise! Sadness is in the house!
Riley is now a teenager. I can't handle this. And her mind headquarters is undergoing a sudden demolition to make room for something entirely unexpected, new emotions. And our current emotions aren't sure how to feel when anxiety shows up and it looks like she's not alone, and so I was excited about that. Obviously, this movie's rated PG. It's a Pixar film. You have some returning voice actors here. Amy Poehler, Phyllis Smith, Lewis Black. They're all back as the characters we know and love. We do have some replacement voices. This time around, no Bill Hader. We have Tony Hale. And this time around, it's Liza Lapria, as discussed. The new voice cast includes Maya Hawke, Ayo Edebiri, Paul Walter Hauser. But as interesting as introducing envy and embarrassment nostalgia is on its surface, it's anxiety played by Maya Hawke that manages to steal the show this time around, which is true because anxiety always steals the show, doesn't it?
This is the worst.
And so I'm watching this. The whole time I'm thinking, man, when I was a teen, 13, 14, admittedly, I didn't really know that much about anxiety, what it actually was, and how it was probably affecting me at the time, because that's not really something that was discussed in the 2010s. When was I little? I guess I was 13 in 2008. Jeez, I'm old.
Hi there, young people.
And so seeing young Riley, now older Riley, going through this, getting into her teenage years, discovering what it actually means to go through something like a puberty in this movie is absolutely fascinating to watch, and it's so interesting to see what some will say is a kid's movie, but I would say a family film tackles something like this. And we've seen examples as of late of family movies trying to tackle this. Some work, some do not. I believe Inside Out 2 does a better job than most when it comes to tackling what young teenagers are going through at that age in terms of their emotions and how to try their best to process that. And that was a beautiful thing to see on screen. I thought the writing in this movie from start to finish. Now, we'll talk about the character depth and some things I felt that were lacking, but dealing with that sole subject, the writing was fantastic, and I really enjoyed the experience from her perspective. But whether it's a young girl or young boy, I believe they're going to be able to watch this, relate to it, see what our character is going through, how she's struggling with friendships and going to a new high school, and whether or not to try to fit in with the older kids. We all go through that. I went through that. Did I fit in? Probably not. And dealing with all of this means that Riley gets a lot more screen time this time around than she did in the first movie. So we're spending plenty of time in the real world, trying our best to balance that with what's going on inside of her head. And what's going on inside of her head is absolute chaos once things start to change and these new emotions come in, and there are quite a few of them. Not all of them get the depth that they deserve. Honestly, anxiety is pushed to the forefront here. The others are just kind of lingering in the background. But of course, our core and current emotions are having to go through it as well because they're being bottled up. You get it?
Oh my God, that was so funny!
There's a lot of that in this film, like there was in the first. The creativity of what emotions can do to you, but how that eventually leads to what you believe, what you feel. And that is where the depth of the actual story comes in. See, while I lacked some character depth with these new emotions other than anxiety, the story is just so darn creative. The creativity you see in Inside Out 1, the creativity you see in Soul, is here again. And that's what a lot of people have been missing from recent Pixar movies. And even though this is a sequel, I will compare it to something more along the lines of a Toy Story 2 than I would any of the Cars sequels, or even Incredibles 2, which is one that I enjoyed. But admittedly, this is more like a Toy Story 2 because it takes these characters, expands upon them, introduces new characters, but also keeps the creativity intact. And there's one sequence in particular that introduces a couple of new animation styles, therefore new characters. It was so funny. The crowd was cracking up. The humor, while not quite as good as the first Inside Out, is still really good here. And those were the moments, Pouchy, I'm not going to say who it is, but Pouchy, come on, man, that was great.
It was perfect.
My other big complaint here, not often one I have for animated films, sometimes this is a really good thing, but this movie is so fast-paced. You're going from one plot point to the next, back to the real world, back to the imagination world, back to our characters over here, our characters over there.
All right, I get it!
And at times, it kind of felt like the Lego Movie. I'd say maybe the sequel to the Lego Movie because it didn't quite have that comedic timing that the first did. And so I felt as if we could have taken a breather or relaxed during numerous moments like, all right, can I process this? I know we're dealing with processing emotions, but can I do that? Because I just didn't feel like I had time to at points. And I just rewatched the first Inside Out. It had those moments where it slows down, you're able to soak it all in. Inside Out 2, while there is a lot to soak in, and it's beautifully written, there aren't a lot of times where you have time to just sit with an idea or a line that you did in the first. And there's one really emotionally impactful moment in the first Inside Out. You don't quite reach the heights of that in this movie, even though it's very consistent across the board emotionally. Maybe a lot of people are going to be disappointed there isn't that moment in this movie, but consistency across the board is important in an animated film. And once we start to reach the climax of this film, I was really invested in our main character. And just how they were able to tie this all in, the sweet, emotional, heartfelt moments. I mean, just the third act really worked for me. Look, maybe it doesn't quite have the magic of the first, but it doesn't have to work. It doesn't have to be a charming and heartfelt Pixar film, and one that I think is going to resonate with a lot of people, especially if you're around that age right now, which you're probably not watching this review, but hey, if they're around that age, I think they're going to really respond to this. Also, yeah, the animation. Do I even have to mention it? I mean, when you're watching this in IMAX and you see the threads on Sadness's shirt and these small little pieces of light just flying off of Joy as she's talking, and speaking of Joy, Amy Poehler's great. Everyone is great returning in this movie. But yeah, the visuals, I'm just like, that's ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous how good some of these Pixar movies look on the big screen. Before I give you my score, if you like this Pixar review or the new thumbnail, let me know down below. Drop that thumbs up. That would be awesome. And check out my podcast, Movie Mode, where I'm going to dive a lot deeper in Inside Out 2 this weekend. Inside Out 2 feels like a natural progression for our main character, the core emotions that we love, and this inventive concept. The way they expand upon this idea as we experience Riley's early teenage emotions is fantastic. And anxiety is the best new character. Pixar has once again captured the perfect amount of heart mixed in with some powerful and relatable teenage emotions. The depth is lacking with some of the new characters, and it's too fast-paced at times. That being said, this is definitely a family movie, not a kids movie, so it's one that the adults are going to enjoy, or at least have some fun with, just like the kids. And the daughter's name is Riley, and my daughter is turning 1 this week. That's crazy. Thank you all so much for watching this. I'm going to go cry in a corner. I'll see you soon.